Her sinister pet-sitting nightmares exposed, terrifying, haunted encounters that changed everything. Sarah thought pet-sitting was just a way to make ends meet after being laid off, but what she uncovered was far from the fluffy dogtails she expected. The quiet life of Maplewood turned eerie when she began receiving ominous messages hinting at dark secrets lurking within her friendly neighborhood. "They're not what they seem," flashed across her phone one night, breaking the serene hum of children playing in the distance. This wasn't just a job, it was a terrifying descent into the unknown. The first encounter was the Johnsons, a seemingly perfect suburban family with a carefree golden retriever named Max. Under the friendly facade, whispers about their sudden move to the area echoed in the air. As Sarah took Max for a walk, she noticed something strange. The neighbors watched her with unnerving stillness. Their smiles felt painted on, like masks hiding who they truly were. Max tugged on his leash, barking at shadows that didn't exist, as if sensing a danger she couldn't see. Then there was the couple with the feisty little cat named Whiskers. They had abruptly vanished, leaving behind only sad mews and worried neighbors. Every time Sarah went to check on Whiskers, she felt an invisible gaze prickling her neck, and the hairs on her arms would stand up. The backyard, usually a sunny spot, seemed like a scene from a nightmare, overgrown and foreboding. In her mind, she pieced together the whispers echoing through their neighborhood. "You don't want to know," they'd say when she asked about the missing pets. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The third situation was the tempestuous German shepherd, Bruno, who returned home bloodied and frightened after an evening walk. Sarah's heart raced as she recalled the tales of previous owners who disappeared without a trace. The things Bruno had dragged home didn't just look like leaves, they looked like fur. A strange, deep black that didn't belong. Panic twisted in her stomach. The once quaint neighborhood felt hostile, filled with systems of secrets hidden in the shadows, waiting for someone to uncover them. And then the true horror struck. On a moonless night, while she opened the back door for Max, dread washed over her as she felt eyes fixated on her. Could it be an illusion? As she scanned the yard, a silhouette emerged from behind the trees, dark and menacing. Sarah could hear her heart thudding, a cacophony of dread reverberating in the silence. Max suddenly bolted, vanishing into the thick underbrush, disappearing without a sound. "Where are you, Max?" she cried, desperation cracking her voice. The neighborhood, once buzzing with laughter, now suffocated under a blanket of silence. She knew the walls were closing in. Shadows danced with malicious intent, and the whispers had transformed into an echoing dread, sending chills through her very core. Racked with fear, she retraced her steps through the darkened streets, aware that her neighbors were watching with the same polite indifference, their smiles turning sinister in the dim light. As she stood outside the abandoned home, a low growl reverberated from the shadows. Her breath hitched. The phone buzzed again. Another message. "We know you're out there. Your family won't be safe unless you find the dog." Everything spiraled into chaos. The stakes had risen. It was a fight for survival now, and she needed to discover the truth lurking within the eerie neighborhood, a truth that might cost her everything. The air felt thick with tension as Sarah stood frozen outside the abandoned house. Her mobile phone buzzed again, this time with a new alert that illuminated the darkness. "The truth will set you free, or bury you alive." A cold shiver shot down her spine, like icy fingers tracing her back. Was this how the neighborhood had always been? A facade hiding something gruesome behind its cheerful surface? "Max!" she shouted again, but the shadows seemed to swallow her voice, dragging it into the abyss of the night. The streetlights flickered, casting eerie shapes and deepening the darkness around her. This wasn't a harmless suburban neighborhood anymore. It felt like the heart of some malevolent secret. Every instinct told her to run, but she couldn't leave without Max. With trembling hands, she dug into her pocket for her flashlight, the beam cutting through the night like a sword. Shadows lurked under every tree, and the chill of the unknown coiled around her, tightening. She turned abruptly toward the Johnsons' house, the only place she hadn't explored yet. The silence was deafening, punctuated only by the distant murmur of wind through the trees. Sneaking toward their yard, the beam of her flashlight danced over the fence, revealing an overgrown garden filled with weeds that seemed to twist and writhe like living things. Suddenly, her breath hitched in her throat as the light caught something, a shape moving under the porch. "Is that you, Max?" she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. As she crept closer, the shape vanished into the shadows, deeper beneath the old wood. Panic surged in her chest. What if it wasn't Max? She hesitated, heart pounding. When she heard it, a soft whimper almost drowned out by the malignant stillness. Sarah lunged toward the sound, finding herself squeezing between dilapidated furniture strewn in the yard. The shadows dripped over her senses, making her skin crawl, but she couldn't back down. As she reached under the porch, fingers brushing against cool fur, the realization hit her like a slap. It wasn't Max. The fur was rough and short. "Bruno!" she gasped as the flashlight fell, illuminating the terrified German shepherd's eyes staring back at her. Blood matted in his thick coat, his body tense, trembling like a leaf in the wind. Sarah's heart raced as she pulled him closer, the pair of them huddled in the darkness of lies. "Where's Max?" she asked, hope draining with every second. Thoughts raced through her mind, flipping through memories of all the strange encounters. Then she heard it. A door creaked somewhere nearby. The hairs on the back of her neck stood on end, a primal fear flooding her veins. The whispers of neighbors echoed ominously. "You don't want to know." The porch creaked again, louder this time, and filled her with dread. She wasn't alone. Checking her phone again, she found another message, this one more alarming than the last. "You should have left the truth alone." It struck her like a thunderclap. Before she could react, she glimpsed movement, shadows shifting, and then silence. Sarah froze, terror seeping through her as heavy boots thudded above her on the porch. The door creaked open, revealing a figure cloaked in darkness. "Come out, Sarah." The voice echoed, malevolent and calm as the night. The blood drained from her face. She had no choice. Would she run, hiding in the encroaching gloom, or confront whatever lay beyond the shadows? Either way, the darkness had plans for her. "Max," she murmured under her breath, feeling the weight of her choice resting heavily upon her. But deep down, Sarah knew she was running out of time. As the figure stepped closer, casting a long shadow over her and Bruno, the question loomed in the air. Did she have the courage to face the darkness that waited to be unearthed? The figure loomed, casting the moonlight into a shroud of darkness, making it impossible to discern any features. The chilling voice echoed around her, blending into the rustling leaves and the low growls of Bruno. "You can't hide forever. You know too much." Panic surged as Sarah gripped Bruno tighter. Time was slipping through her fingers. The front door of the Johnsons' house creaked open wider, framing the shadow like some perverse doorway to hell. "Stay here, Bruno," she whispered, her heart thundering. But the dog's body shook against her, a fear she shared. She took a shallow breath, her instincts fighting with the desperate need to find Max. "Who are you?" she called, her voice more confident than she felt. "What do you want?" A silhouette stepped forward, and her flashlight flickered, casting a wobbly beam over the figure. A black hoodie covered their head and shadowed their face, but she could see glimmers of white, something toothy, grinning in the dim light. It reminded her of the dogs in her neighborhood gone wild, teeth flashing against the dark, embodying their primal fury. "Just a guardian of secrets," the figure replied, a hint of amusement in the voice. "You should really let this go, Sarah." She felt an urge to flee, but her feet were nailed to the ground. The whispers around the neighborhood were wrapping tighter around her mind. "What secrets?" she pressed. "That your little friend is not alone," the figure said, gesturing toward the gloom of the porch. "He's just one of many." Cold dread slithered down Sarah's spine. Her fingers trembled on the flashlight, now barely illuminating the ground beneath her. "Where is Max?" "Still digging for truths, I see," the figure taunted. "You never stop. You'll find him, or you'll find worse." Before she could process the threat, the figure lunged for her. Instinct kicked in. She dashed sideways, narrowly avoiding a grab. She bolted back toward the safety of the street, Bruno following faithfully at her heels. A guttural laugh echoed after her. "Run while you can. The neighborhood is alive, and so are its secrets." Sarah sprinted into the dark, the beam of her flashlight dancing wildly as adrenaline coursed through her. Each shadow she passed felt like a claw reaching out, trying to pull her back. The streetlights buzzed, flickering ominously, each blink reminding her of the secrets hidden just beyond their glow. Would she dare to venture back? She glanced over her shoulder, heart racing as the ominous figure faded into the darkness. Did she have the strength to unearth the horror that unnaturally thrived here, or would it claim her too? Breathless, Sarah reached the end of the street where she could see the outlines of her own house, but something gleamed wrong in her peripheral vision. Another flicker, a movement under a neighbor's porch. "Max!" she called, voice breaking, desperation clawing at her throat. But no response met her ears, only a heavy stillness thicker than before. She felt the reality closing in around her. If she did not find him soon, the secrets would suffocate them both. The fear of staying abandoned here, of becoming another whisper in the night, gnawed at her gut. As she turned to scan the area, her phone buzzed again. Yet another message drawn to her like a moth to a flame. "Join us or be left behind." Anxiety twisted her stomach into knots. "Max!" she screamed again. "Where are you?" Answer met her in a low growl from deeper in the shadows, matching the heartbeat pulsing in her ears. Was it him, or something else entirely? As she strained her ears, the laughter returned, cruel and taunting, filling the air with malice. Stumbling backward, Sarah felt arms of fear creeping around her. She could run, or she could confront whatever faced her in the darkness. Both choices loomed before her as she clenched the flashlight, steeling herself for what awaited. Would she uncover the hidden truths, or would the darkness consume her whole? The growl in the shadows rose, revealing more than just a canine presence. Sarah's heart pounded louder, drowning out the low laughter echoing around her. The night was charged, and she felt its electric pulse vibrating against her skin. Bruno stiffened, eyes trained on the darkness where the growl had erupted, like he sensed a threat more substantial than fear. "Stay close," she whispered, kneeling beside him. The world narrowed to the sound of her breathing and the thudding of her pulse in her ears. Slowly, she edged closer to the porch, desperately seeking Max. "Max!" she called again, her voice wavering. A rustle in the bushes made her freeze, the flashlight's beam scouring the underbrush. It illuminated nothing but fluttering leaves, yet the eeriness loomed like a spectre. And then she saw it. A thin, scaly hand darted from the shadows. Her stomach dropped as the paleness of the skin contrasted vividly against the darkness. It beckoned her, fingers curling in an unnaturally inviting gesture. "No!" she screamed, bolting back as terror surged within her. The laughter escalated, echoing in an unsettling chorus that intertwined with whispers that seemed ready to swallow her whole. "Join us or be left behind." The shadows around her flickered and twisted as if alive. They pulsed with the promise of secrets, luring her with their seductive danger. Every instinct screamed for her to run, yet she felt anchored, a thread holding her in place, as if the night had a grip on her. Bruno growled in warning, sounding more fierce, and for a sliver of a moment Sarah could feel the tether of courage. She had to find Max, had to break the spell of this malignant darkness. She stepped toward the porch once more, flashlight firmly in hand. "Max, I'm coming!" she called, forcing her voice to stay steady, even as her limbs shook. With cautious steps, she approached, casting her beam across the hollowed face of the porch. Nothing stirred. Each slant of light revealed only the decay. It looked as if the wood itself breathed, warped and twisted beneath some unfathomable weight. "Please, Max!" Panic clawed at her throat. The only answer was the rustling breeze, mocking as if the night itself laughed at her desperation. Suddenly, without warning, a figure burst from the darkness ahead. It was hunched, skeletal, with eyes that glowed unnaturally. "You've come for him." The voice was delightfully sinister, echoing as if it were speaking from within a hollow. "Who? What are you?" Sarah stammered, her body teetering on the brink of flight. The thing stepped closer, flickering in and out of the light like a grotesque shadow. The grin, oh, that grin, a ghastly stretch of anticipation that promised far worse than she could imagine. "Don't you see? You're too late for him, but stay." The invitation dripped with malice. Stay, and you might just uncover something special. The fear encased her, but more pressing was the need for Max. "Where is he?" she cried, desperation exploding from her lips. Suddenly a sharp bark pierced the air, cutting through the chaotic tension. "Max!" she shouted, drawing on the remnant of hope. The creature clad in shadows tilted its head, everything about its posture oozing eagerness, hungry for her fear. "Very well," it hissed, edging closer, "but you must first prove you belong. Amidst our family secrets." A chill bit into her resolve. There was no turning back now. Sarah steeled herself, driven by an unquenchable thirst for the truth and the need to face the horrors before her. As she took a step forward, ready to confront whatever unspeakable fate awaited her, a shout echoed from the direction of the street. "Sarah, run!" Her heart skipped, splitting her focus. Max's face swam before her eyes in frantic flashes, sweet and innocent, lost among monsters. She hesitated, the pull of the darkness so intense, but then decided. She had to escape this nightmare. Whatever was left of her in the end could still fight for him, but just as she turned to flee, the grip in her mind tightened, an unbearable pressure that clouded her thoughts and rendered her motionless. "Join us," the voices beckoned. Would she succumb to the chilling allure of the hidden truths, or would she manage to unearth the sinister reality that dwelled beneath her feet? Sarah felt the darkness surrounding her, waiting, anticipating her surrender, as the ground beneath her pulsed ominously, and then a scream shattered the night. Shattered. The scream echoed, harsh and piercing, slicing through the thick veil of night. For a heartbeat, time hung in an eerie stillness, suspended between horror and realization. The shadowy creature froze, its grin faltering as it regarded Sarah with a mix of interest and annoyance. "Let her scream," it hissed, as if the sounds of desperation were a mere playful jest. It didn't matter. All that truly mattered was the instinct to run. Sarah fought against the suffocating grip of the darkness. Every fiber of her being screamed to turn and flee, to trust her feet to bear her away. But the ground held her, and panic twisted the air in her lungs. "Sarah!" The voice from the street was faint but urgent. It reignited her sense of purpose. "Max!" She remembered his wagging tail, his joyful bark. She had to find him, to save him from whatever hell lurked in the shadows. With a fierce determination, she broke free from the creature's thrall and surged toward the porch. The wooden planks creaked eerily beneath her weight, as if knowing her fear and relishing in it. The laughter returned, low and mocking like a cruel wind. "Join us," echoed in her ears. "Shut up!" she yelled into the dark, breathless. The sound of her voice shocked her, momentarily grounding her. She moved fiercely now, the flashlight swinging wildly, illuminating shapes that twisted through the trees, darting off like fleeting memories. Then just ahead, a flash of movement snagged her attention. Was it a trick of the light? No, it was something real. She squinted against her flashlight, and her heart raced as she caught a glimpse. A familiar golden fur tangled in the roots of a massive oak. It was Max. "Max!" she cried out again, her voice edged with sheer desperation. She rushed toward him, shedding the dread that clung to her. But as she neared, something chilled her blood. He wasn't alone. Circling his tiny frame, more shadows writhed, pale and elongated figures eagerly eyeing their captured prey. "Nice of you to join us," the skeletal figure chimed joyfully, stepping forward with a lazy deference. "You see, we were just getting acquainted." Sarah's heart raced, her breath quickening as she fought through the impending sense of doom. The slithering forms surrounded Max, who whimpered softly, confused but trusting. "No! Stay away from him!" Sarah lunged forward, and with a jolt she grabbed Max, pulling him close against her trembling body. The shadows recoiled slightly, hissing, their faces twisting with disdain at her defiance. "Foolish girl!" The sinister voice returned, an echo of mockery that curled around her like smoke. "He belongs to us now. You can't take him." Gripping Max tighter, she felt his warmth juxtaposed against the encroaching coldness of the night. "I won't let you have him," she hollered, fiercely emboldened by a mother's love. The ground seemed to pulse, thrumming with an ominous send-off as the darkness caught fire with laughter deep and rich. The shadows danced closer, their forms shifting, beckoning her into their eternal embrace. She steeled herself, eyes wide, acknowledging the terror ahead. The shadows lunged, swarming around her and Max, pulling her toward the heart of their grotesque family. She felt the weight of the night spiral around her, pressing inwards, threatening to consume her whole. In that moment, Sarah remembered something. The legends, the stories whispered in hushed tones. There was a way to banish the dark. It needed a price, an offering made from the deepest recesses of your heart. She could give up her fears, her hopes, or something much worse. "No!" She screamed through the madness. She refused to let them take control. "I'll fight! You'll never win!" As she stood firm, struggling against the tide of shadows, a sudden pulse of light burst from her flashlight, engulfing her with a blinding flash. Everything went dark. Then silence. Out in the street the call had changed, and she knew that whatever came next wouldn't just be about her or Max. The whispers grew louder, now feeling closer, enveloping the air with sly promises and threats. There was a shift, a silence that promised far more than despair. For Sarah, the choice loomed large over her, like a massive storm ready to swallow everything whole. What would she be willing to sacrifice to escape the night? Would she drown in its darkness, or carve her own path through the secrets that lay buried beneath? As the last remnant of light flickered, she felt cold fingers wrap around her wrist, pulling her back toward the welcoming grasp of shadow. Sarah's senses flared back to life, but the world was disoriented and warped. The darkness throbbed, pulsing like the heartbeat of something alive, something that hungered. The remnants of light danced around her, just outside her reach, like the last flickers of a dying star. She felt Max's tiny body pressed against her, warm and trembling. "It's okay, buddy. I'm here," she whispered, her voice strained and fragile. The shadows were closing in, circling them with a deliberate slowness that made her skin crawl. "Didn't like our little game?" the skeletal figure taunted, its smile wide, teeth like jagged crescent moons. It leaned in closer, whispering in a voice that felt like ice, scraping against her thoughts. "You're part of it now." With a sudden rush, the shadows lunged again, seeking to envelop them both. Sarah's heart thundered in her chest. Time blurred. She wasn't sure how to escape, but instinct kicked in. She remembered the legends. She had to seek something important enough to sacrifice. "Leave us alone!" she screamed, shielding Max with her body. The shadows hissed, recoiling momentarily. She felt the energy shift, their amusement replaced with palpable irritation. "Offering!" One of the elongated figures screeched, its voice coarse like gravel. "An offering to seal your fate!" The words sparked a frantic idea in her head. She could offer her fear, something they desperately wanted. But what if they took more than that? "Fine, I'll give you my fear," she shouted, desperation pouring from her. "But let us go! Just let us go!" She could feel the throb of darkness around her, beckoning her into its depths. With that declaration, the shadows froze, momentarily shocked. She curled in on herself, drowning in the memories of every moment that had made her tremble, every dark alley, every ominous creak in the night, every fear of losing Max. It surged forth, a tidal wave of her innermost dread, and she offered it into the darkness. The thing seemed to mockingly ponder. Such a neat little package, but still not enough. The shadows lunged again, tearing at her heart with insatiable hunger. The cold fingers gripped her tighter, seeping into her skin like poison. Panic clawed at her throat. "What more do you want?" she shouted, teetering on the brink of utter despair. "Something precious," the laughter twisted, a cruel echo in the back of her mind. "Something you can't imagine living without." Her gaze darted down to Max, the soft fur and trusting eyes. Realization slammed into her like a freight train. "No!" she gasped, heart hammering. "I won't give him to you, never!" But the shadows needed a choice, a final price that would plunge her into their clutches. "Surrender your love or lose it forever," they whispered, enticing and dark. The temperature dropped, time slowed. Sarah's breaths were short, staccato, as she grappled with the weight of the decision. They were threatening to take everything. With a roar of defiance, Sarah rushed forward, her heart racing faster than her feet could carry her. "You can't have him," she howled into the darkness. As she pushed through the writhing mass of shadows, she felt the light within her flare anew, a deep, burning need to protect the fragile life she held in her arms. But the shadows weren't done yet. They were unpredictable, eager to crush her spirit, to snare her with despair. Dark tendrils reached for her, wrapping around her limbs, dragging her back. They pulled with ferocity, threatening to engulf everything she held dear. Just as she anticipated the worst, a blinding flash erupted once more. Was it her flashlight? Was it hope? All around her the shadows screamed, twisting and writhing as a force of radiant light surged through the gloom. The figures shrieked with unearthly fury, their hold on her fading. But then a horrible realization struck. "It's not enough!" she screamed, as the whispers of the dark echoed louder, hungry for her sacrifice. What more was she willing to pay? The burst of light flickered again, and she caught a glimpse of the restless night beyond, the twisted reflections of the memories she'd never be able to escape. Just as quickly as the light appeared, darkness surged forward. "Join us!" It echoed in her ears, relentless. Suddenly a shadow darted forward, a glimpse of something familiar. "Sarah," it whispered, a voice woven through the chaos. It was calling to her, pulling her toward the abyss. Would she break away entirely, or allow the night to swallow her whole? As the last flicker of light dimmed, enveloping them once more in impenetrable darkness, Sarah had only one thought. She could fight this, or she could surrender everything. But what would be left to sacrifice when the shadows came knocking on her door next? The shadows resumed their pressing advance, a living darkness clawing at the edges of Sarah's mind. The whispers coiled around her thoughts like a noose, tightening painfully. Max's whimper broke through the cacophony, grounding her momentarily in the small warmth of his body against hers. "What do we do, Sarah?" His voice was muffled, but the fear in it pierced through her. "Stay close, Max. I won't let them take you," she vowed, her voice low and fierce. But deep inside, she felt the rising tide of dread, a gnawing certainty that they were losing ground. The shadows pulsed around her, a tide she couldn't fight with all her strength alone. Your love is weak, the skeletal figure hissed, its piercing eyes shining with dark glee. What else can you offer? We know your secrets, your shames, your guilt. You've wrapped them tightly. You could free them. You could save the boy. Panic mingled with rage as the figure's words pricked her mind. Her darkest moments, her mistakes, her failures, each floated up like oil on water, right beneath the surface, ready to break free. What else do you want? She spat out defiantly, feeling both vulnerable and empowered. Your darkest fear, your hidden regret. It taunted as the other shadows swirled in enthusiastic agreement. The price for your love is steep. Let us feast on it. For a moment, she hesitated. This could mean sacrificing the memories that haunted her, but would the darkness truly be sated? Would Max truly be free? Max, she whispered, desperation creasing her brow. You have to trust me. The boy nodded, fear contrasting with an unyielding will. Then we take this together, she declared. If it's my regrets that you want... The shadows hissed in anticipation, the edges of their forms writhing as if they could taste her fear. Offer your regrets to us, surrender, and we will grant you freedom. With her heart racing, she began to sift through the nightmares that haunted her. Every time she'd torn apart a friendship, the moments where she'd stood idle in the face of someone else's pain, the choices that led her to this very moment. She felt each pang of regret, each fleeting chance that slipped away. Take them, she cried, feeling warmth rushing from her core as memories flooded into the shadows, an uncontrollable deluge of painful choices and paths untraveled. No, do not let go, Max screamed, but her determination solidified. She could not allow them to consume him. The shadows writhed and writhed, relishing her offering, but their laughter turned hollow. Foolish girl, we require blood. A shiver of dread crept down her spine. No, you won't take that. We already have. You must pay the final price, they whispered, their tones dripping with malice. Join us. Suddenly the air crackled, and the shadows closed in tighter, swarming like a storm. The darkness was a roaring tempest, pulling at her limbs with fierce abandon as it sought to devour her whole. She clenched her teeth, fighting against their grasp, but they were insatiable. Panic bloomed in her chest. Fight, Sarah! You have to fight! Max's voice was a beacon in her growing despair, pushing her to cling to hope amidst the encroaching void. With a surge of desperation, she focused on Max, the boy who was worth every ounce of her pain, every regret and fracture of her heart. I won't abandon you! Not now! The shadows faltered as if pushed back by the strength of her love. But as she bucked against their grasp, something caught her eye, an unearthly glow pulsing through the darkness. It felt familiar, just out of reach, a light that had been waiting for her acknowledgement. Max! She cried, straining toward it, but the shadows clawed harder, determined to snatch away that flicker of hope, and then came the voice again, echoing through her mind, a haunting melody mingling with the chaos. Join us, forever. Would Sarah surrender all that she held dear, or would she grasp the light, risking both hers and Max's life, stakes higher than ever before? The choice clawed at her, a desperate need swirling in her gut. She felt the shadows tighten, thrumming with a dark melody, and in that moment everything hinged on what she would find within herself. Would she meet darkness with light, or would she slip into the depths? The darkness was alive, and it was hungry. Would they be the next feast in a long line of victims, or could they break free from the terror that craved them? As the shadows roared in resistance, Sarah reached for the glimmering light. The moment her fingers brushed against the light, Sarah felt a jolt electrify her body. It surged through her veins, igniting a warmth that pushed against the cold tendrils of shadow. She gasped, the brightness enveloping her like a protective cocoon. "Max, hold on!" she shouted, her voice laced with fierce resolve. The shadows writhed with fury, a dark storm crashing against the vibrant glow. They shrieked and twisted, emerging like angry serpents from a pit. "You dare defy us!" the skeletal figure screeched, its voice like nails scraping against glass. "You belong to us! You cannot escape!" But in that moment, Sarah felt something change, a connection to the light. It wasn't just brilliance, it was a reminder of her strength, of the love she had for Max, and the fierce will to protect him. Through the chaos, her memories slipped away, but not the powerful ones, the laughter, the joy, the moments that mattered most. "Let him go!" she yelled, fiercer than ever, thrusting forward, determined to break the chains of shadow clinging to her. The shadows recoiled, momentarily stunned by her resolve. "You will pay dearly for this," boomed a chorus of dark voices. They swirled violently around her, brushing against her skin like icy fingers. "You think your love is enough? We will take everything." "No!" she screamed, fury surging in her chest. The glow pulsed stronger as she embraced her love for Max, wrapping them both in a shield of light. Each heartbeat ignited echoes of laughter, kindness, and forgiveness, gifting her the strength to withstand the dark. The shadows shrieked louder, thrumming with a fury that rattled the very air around her. "Your past will haunt you. Your grief will consume you." As they pressed in, Sarah felt an eruption of darkness fill her mind, a whirlwind of her failures, her losses, every doubt she'd ever harbored clawing to the surface. It felt overwhelming, like she was drowning in a flood of despair. "Stay with me, Max," she gasped, squeezing his hand, feeling each of his quick breaths echoing against the encroaching doom. "Remember the good times. Remember the light." Suddenly, the surge of shadow fell silent. In place of chaos, the air thickened with a quiet dread, like the moment before a storm breaks. Her memories and the laughter snaked through the air, binding her to the boy clinging desperately to her side. The shadows, once formidable, swirled uncertainly around them, their forms flickering like dying flames. "Join us!" the figure hissed again, but its voice now wavered, uncertainty creeping in. "There is no escape." "What if there's a way out?" Sarah retorted, fueled by the glow pouring from her. She felt the connection deepen as her love for Max somehow interacted with the light, forging an alliance that felt indestructible. "Do not forget," the shadows warned, voices whispering like a cold wind beneath her skin. "We are always watching, waiting, lurking." "Then let them watch," she shouted defiantly, her heart racing with intensity. "We'll prove them wrong." Just as the shadows surged forward again, the light ignited brighter, flooding them with a pure brilliance, banishing the oppressive dread. They blinked wide-eyed as the tendrils of darkness fell away, retreating, and in unison they howled in anguish, evaporating in the light of her fierce love. But just as Sarah thought they'd won, a chilling whisper brushed against her ear, even as the shadows dissolved. "This is not the end. We know your true fears. The darkness always returns." Max let out a trembling breath. "What does that mean?" As the last remnants of shadow slipped from view and the glow began to fade, she looked down at Max, the boy who had given her the strength to push back. But an unsettling dread rippled through her heart. "I don't know," she admitted softly, the glow around them flickering like a dying flame. Would they truly escape, or merely delay the inevitable? As the silence settled, a new wave of uncertainty washed over her. They had fought back today, but at what cost? Would the darkness find another way to seep back in? The light dimmed, but the air remained heavy with unfulfilled shadows, lingering just at the edges of her mind, waiting. Fear coiled tight in her stomach, and she knew this was only the beginning. As Max's eyes darted around, unease settling in, Sarah understood. The battle might have been won, but the war was far from over. How could they defeat a darkness that knew their secrets and craved their deepest fears? The question hung in the air like a cloud, foreboding, insistent. A blackened tendril flickered just at the edge of her vision, whispering promises and threats. Would they need to take on the shadows again? And suddenly, with chilling clarity, she realized the truth. Something was waiting beyond the light, something dark, and it was coming for them. The air felt electric, charged with something unseen, as Sarah grasped Max's hand tighter. They stood amidst shadows that were not yet gone. Remnants flickered like embers against the fading light. Each breath she took shook her, filling her chest with apprehension. The darkness had surged back, brighter, bolder, a predator waiting in the shadows, hungry for her. "Max, we need to move," she whispered, urgency spilling from her voice like a desperate plea. But when she looked down at him, he was staring into the darkened corners of the room, his wide eyes reflecting fear, not just of the shadows, but of something he couldn't name. "Sarah, I feel it. Something is coming." Before she could reply, an icy draught whipped through the space, chilling her bones. It carried a whisper that clawed at her ears, beckoning with a voice too familiar, yet warped. "You will not escape. You will never escape." "Shut it out," she shouted, more for herself than for Max. "We can't give it power." But the words washed over her like a wave, crashing against her resolve. She could feel the cold creeping back around her, like fingers wrapping around her throat. What if it's right? A part of her wanted to scream. The darkness promised release, a way to heal the fractures in her heart left by loss. All she had to do was let go. No. She shook her head violently, as if that could expel the thoughts. "We have to keep fighting." Panic flooded her, igniting her mind. They couldn't allow darkness to creep back in, much less sink its claws into Max. Their bond, her love, was their strongest weapon. She felt it flicker weakly, an ember smothered by doubt. "Let me show you," she breathed, letting a flicker of strength color her voice with hope. "The light is still here. We can find it." As if cueing a performance, something shifted in the darkness, pooling ominously in the corners. Shapes morphed, hinting at silhouettes, slowly stalking them. Each corner felt like an eye, watching, waiting. The tension sizzled in the air as they stood frozen, uncertainty choking their breath. Max took a cautious step back. "What do we do now?" "Together," Sarah declared, her breath catching in her throat. "We face it together." With a surge of will, she closed her eyes, calling upon every joyful moment, every reason they fought back. The light responded, flickering back against the dark, a pulse, a heartbeat. She felt warmth begin to rise, saturating her like a comforting embrace. But when she opened her eyes, Max was gone. Panic gripped her heart with both hands. "Max, where are you?" Her voice was a desperate echo swallowed by the encroaching dark. A low, bone-chilling laughter resonated from the shadows that now formed grotesque figures, shifting and slithering. "Come play with us, Sarah," they beckoned, their voices dripping with malice. She recoiled, a wave of nausea crashing through her. "No! Let him go!" A flash of light ignited her emotions, casting the figures in sharp relief, their twisted forms catching the glow. But every flicker of light cast longer, darker shadows, and she realized with a creeping dread that they extended, reaching for what was left of her heart. "Max, where are you?" she screamed, her words fractured by fear. She whirled around, searching the darkness as it swallowed the light whole. The laughter turned to whispers that wrapped around her like barbed wire. Then she saw him, standing in the midst of the shadows, eyes wide, mouth moving silently. It was as if he were trapped in a bubble, the dark closing in, narrowing the distance. "Sarah," he mouthed, the terror on his face slicing through her heart like a knife. "I'm coming!" she screamed, lunging toward him. But shadows unfurled around her, blocking her path, thick and suffocating. They pulled at her ankles, dragging her back, whispering promises of surrender that felt eerily comforting. "Give in, Sarah. He is lost to you now. Join us." "No!" she shouted, shaking her head violently. "Max, fight it!" But within the shadows, another figure emerged, a reflection of Max, twisted and smiling, lips curling in an unsettling manner. "We can be free together," the darkness mocked, its eyes hollow. "Stay away from him," she cried, heart racing, knowing now she had to choose. But how could she fight a darkness that wore the face of what she loved most? As the weight of the shadows clawed at her, she realized with sickening clarity that this moment was more than a battle. It was a test, a dark threat whispering, revealing the truth buried deep. Would she sacrifice everything for love? But what if love itself was the very thing they wanted to take? The darkness pulsed with life, and she stood at the precipice of despair, ready to plunge. Would she find a way to break free, or would the shadows claim them both? Then silence hung in the air, a heavy, suffocating silence, until the shadows erupted with fury, forcing a choice. The moment blurred, freezing time, and in that freeze, something whispered, insidious and sweet. "What will you choose?" The weight of the moment pressed down on Sarah like a leaden blanket. Darkness curled around her, an oppressive force hoping to break her spirit. She felt the shadows whispering soft promises, taunting and teasing at the edge of her mind. "Join us." A flicker of light struggled to hold its ground amidst the swirling chaos. She pulled herself closer to it with fierce determination, desperate to remember the warmth, the love that had guided her through this nightmare. "Max!" she shouted, her voice echoing against the walls of despair closing in on her. "I'm here! Fight it!" In her heart, she felt Max's presence, his unwavering spirit, his trust that had never wavered. Somewhere in the heavy shadows she knew he was fighting too, even as they twisted the reality before them, ripping apart the bond they shared. With each step forward, the shadows hissed and recoiled, knowing all too well the danger her love posed. "You'll never find him. Give in, Sarah. Give in." The malicious laughter clawed at her resolve, but deep down she felt the burning ember of hope flare. She couldn't succumb. Not now. "No, I refuse," she screamed defiantly, her voice rising above the shadows, clawing back at the darkness that sought to engulf them. The swirling mass of shadowy figures shimmered with fury, and in that moment of despair, a surge of light erupted from the depths of her heart. A brilliant beacon fueled by every cherished memory, every laugh shared, every moment of love between her and Max. "You are not taking him!" Sarah shouted, the brightness swallowing the darkness for a heartbeat, revealing the true horrors lurking within. She felt the energy pulsing, each memory morphing into a weapon, an overpowering force. The shadowy entities shrieked in dismay, sensing the potency of her love spilling forth. "You are weak, Sarah. Love cannot save you now." Max's face emerged from the shadows once more, panic etched across his features. His eyes, usually sparkling with life, now stared at her with an urgency that clutched at her chest. "Sarah, please, you have to believe in us." "Together," she proclaimed, taking a decisive step forward, the light expanding as it mingled with her determination. "We'll break free together." The shadows writhed, digging into her skin, pulling her towards the darkness that beckoned. They wanted to drown her in her fears, but they didn't understand that love had always triumphed over darkness. "Your fears will consume you," the figures hissed, their voices dripping with malice, clinging to her deepest insecurities. But Sarah fought back, focusing on the joy and warmth of every moment spent with Max. The laughter that had filled their days, that feeling of safety that came from knowing they had each other. "Max!" she cried, forcing the last of her energy into her words. "Hold on to the light. Remember the good. Remember us." As if in response, the darkness recoiled, the laughter shifting to howls of anger and frustration. "No, no!" they screeched, as her light flooded the scene with a vibrant saturation that sparked hope, even in the shadows. Max appeared more real, his features emerging clearly through the chaos. "I'm scared, Sarah," he admitted, the fear in his voice breaking her heart. "I know. she assured him, clenching her fists, ready to confront the darkness as a united front. "But we have each other. We can do this, together. We are stronger." With a burst of resolve, she lunged forward, reaching for Max, their hands connecting in the swell of light they created together. The power of their bond ignited a fire that pushed the darkness back, illuminating the twisted shadows with blazing radiance. "Stay close," she urged him, and Max nodded, their hearts beating as one in defiance of the malevolent forces swirling around them. The darkness screamed in indignation as the tide of light consumed more of its essence, retreating like a tide receding from the shore. "You think you've won?" the skeletal figure cried, its twisted humor now a frantic howl. "This is merely a reprieve. We will always be waiting." "Maybe," Sarah replied, defiance flooding her. "But not today." As her voice echoed into the void, the light surged forward, enveloping every corner of darkness and sweeping it away like dust in a beam of sunshine. The shadows shrieked, dissolving into nothingness, their grasp on her fading. "Let's go, Max!" she yelled, feeling the energy of love engulf her, pulling them upward into clarity away from the pain. Hand in hand, they broke free from the clutches of the darkness entirely, tumbling out into the world, tangible and real. Suddenly, they were back in Maplewood, the familiar street wrapped in the warm glow of the moonlight. Catching her breath, Sarah pulled Max tightly to her, the weight of their battle still heavy on her shoulders, yet crushed by the relief of survival. "We did it," she gasped, tears of joy spilling down her cheeks. "I was so scared," Max whispered, his voice breaking, but his eyes sparkled with determination. "But you fought. You didn't let them take me." "They will always be lurking," she said quietly, brushing a trembling hand down his back. "But so long as we have each other, so long as we have love, we can face anything." A sense of peace washed over them, wrapping them in the comforting realization that together they were powerful, far beyond what any darkness could ever intend. They had emerged victorious this night, but the echoes of shadows would linger. In the heart of Maplewood, as crickets chirped and the moon painted the world with silver, Sarah and Max took a vow of their own. No darkness could strip away their bond, their courage, or their light. They were ready to face whatever else lay ahead, side by side, together always. The world around them felt alive with possibility. As dawn crested on the horizon, shadows were merely whispers waiting to be extinguished by their enduring love. And as they stepped out into the new day, a light filled with hope beckoned them forward, a new beginning amidst the remnants of a haunting past. Love always finds a way. Now it's your turn. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to stay updated on the next exclusive stories we're bringing your way. Smash that like button now to help with the algorithm. It makes a difference. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel. Let's keep this community growing together.